we have a ton to talk about. We have to reveal all of the teams and all of the players. So here's how it's gonna work, guys. Here's how it's gonna work. We are going to go through every single team one by one. We're not going to go from the fourth round on. What we're going to basically end up doing is we're just going to take one team, for example. We're going to go ahead and advance on to the Admirals. And we're going to reveal to you all the remainder of the Admirals' picks and where they're going to be playing for Season 2. All right? And then at the end, after we reveal the rosters, we will give you the expected projections of the team. And then at the end, we will have a recap of the projections and what exactly to be expecting for Season 2, all right? So you guys will be able to see all of these live as we go across. Technically, we're not going to have team rankings per se, but we will hopefully have some of those here very soon, Brent, as we begin the first week of games, and that begins on Saturday. So maybe on Friday, we'll do a team power rankings and a couple of other things. We'll see how that goes. There are a couple teams, Brent, you are right. The Bears are a good team. There are a couple of teams that are extremely good. Extremely good. Now, I will premise our reveal here that every single team can make playoffs. All right? Every single team can make playoffs. We've done tests. Every single team has a shot. Some have more of a shot, okay? I'm not saying that every single team is going to make playoffs. Some teams are more designed to make playoffs. It's just how it is. But every single team is very good, and I'm very happy with how the draft ended up going. We definitely have hit a very happy middle ground on how well the teams are doing for this new season. Is the playoff format going to be the same? No. No. The playoffs are going to be a single elimination, normal playoff structure, with the number 1 and number 2 seeds getting byes, while the number 3 through 6 seeds face off in the first round. So if you get the first 2 seeds, you will be given a bye. It'll be much easier to follow, much more easier to understand. It's going to be a much more standard playoff format for the season, and it's going to be so much easier for all of us, okay? Trust me, that was the first thing that I fixed when I got into the Season 2 prep time. It was no more complicated playoffs, okay? All right, but look, before you share predictions, in 3 words, can you summarize how accurate your predictions were last year? No comment, Mr. Audit. There you go. There's the 3 words. There's the 3 words. You heard it here first, folks. Everyone makes the playoffs. The regular season doesn't matter. Everybody gets in. Good grief. All right, so let's just jump right into it, folks, shall we? The Admirals, as we saw on Saturday, Qui-Gon Jake revealed the top 3 picks for the Admirals. That was Ty Cobb, of course, at pick 22. I was told there'd be no counting during the stream. Pete Wheeler came in with their second round pick, and he was number 28. Number 3 went to Marilyn McDonald. She is going to be their shortstop for the upcoming season. She was pick 70. Now, the Admirals would advance on with their next 5 picks to bring in Jay Green, who will become their starting pitcher ace at 75 overall. That's his pick spot. Dmitry Petrovich will end up going to play third base. Tiffany Bosworth will be their relief pitcher. She was drafted in the 6th round. Jeremy Reynolds was drafted in the 7th round, rounding out the Admirals' starting pitching rotation. And the Billie Jean Blackwood pick at number 8 was another one that was potentially for power. That was kind of the best power person left by the 8th round. It was rough. The Admirals had a little bit of a hard time, unfortunately. It's tough when your picks are only 5 or 6 spots away from each other. You end up kind of getting whatever is the top quality in little bursts, unfortunately, which is how they ended up with this as the rest of their roster. They will be having Stuart Sullivan on the infield, Peter Levine as their second relief pitcher, Cash Considerations as their catcher, with Fritz von Hastig as their last outfielder, with Uma Morris as their final reliever, and their final pickup at the 315 overall spot was PJ Sharif. This has resulted in the Admirals sporting this as their depth chart. All right, they'll be having Pete Wheeler, Ty Cobb, and Fritz von Hestig in the outfield. Pete plays center. Ty Cobb goes to play right field. It'll have an infield of Dmitry Petrovic, Marilyn McDonald, Stuart Sullivan, and Billie Jean Blackwood. Will cash consideration be traded for a player to be named later? Maybe. PJ Sharif will be their DH with cash considerations, of course, behind the dish. And, of course, Jay Green, Jeremy Reynolds going to be their number 1, number 2 pitchers, with Peter Levine, Uma Morris, and Tiffany Bosworth as their bullpen staff. Now, what you might notice right off the bat with this team, and we'll review every single team and kind of figure out what did they do right, what did they do wrong, and right off the bat, there is very little power on this team. Petrovic has a little bit of power. The pickup of Pete Wheeler is a little bit of power there. Ty Cobb has got a little bit, but it's going to be problematic. So what that ends up resulting is that with our updates and all of our projections, as we get into all of that, our projections, grades, and expectations for the Admirals. The Admirals are expected to finish Season 2 with a runs allowed and runs scored of 193 runs scored, around there. You give or take maybe 20 runs, maybe. Again, this is based off of this is based off of 100 simulations. So the RS and RA are going to be pretty close to what we're kind of roughly expecting them to do. Runs allowed, however, 209. The pitching, though, given a B+ rating. So here's what I'll say about this. There are some very different runs scored and runs allowed situations in both sub-leagues, okay? The NAL, the Nails Arc League, which has all the animal teams, have some amazing offenses. And the SDL League, which is the Admirals, the Nobles, the Queens, the Ninjas, have some amazing pitching staff. I don't know how we drafted them this way, but basically the leagues split the quality in half, and the pitching is really good on the SDL, and the batting is really good on the NAL. So that is how a 209 runs allowed and only a 193 runs scored results in a D for offense, but a B+ for pitching. Okay? Now, as you can see, run differential, not that good. The Admirals are not expected to do as well as we would like to have them do. However, because their division and their league is all about pitching, their pitching can technically win them games. So the minimum amount of wins we are expecting them to have in the upcoming season is 16 out of 44. And my apologies about the ad break. I will try to not talk too much about this, and we'll try to delay ourselves for the 3 minutes here. But the maximum wins they can get is just over half of the games they'd be playing. That would be 2 games over 500 at 24 wins. That is what we think is their best. So the optimum position for the Admirals would be somewhere in the 20s to upper high 20s, maybe at best upper high 20s. Probably more likely than not, it'll be low 20s to mid 20s. That would be a good season for the Admirals. However, in the 10 simulations, and I know that's not a lot of numbers to run, that's not a lot of simulations, but in the 10 simulations that we were able to do while we were testing out the league and making sure that everything was right, in those 10 simulations, the Admirals made the playoffs 5 times. 5 times. So they are, in our opinion, a 50-50 team to make playoffs. Ad miserables, the Admirals are sunk. What's amazing is that it's not even so much that they're sunk, it's that they aren't that good, but they can still make it. And it's really a kind of a coin toss. There are going to be 44 games in a season. 44. So this is not a good record, but somehow they win enough games that in the simulations that we tested, they made the playoffs when half the teams advanced to the playoffs. They were somehow half of the time in the upper echelons of those half teams, or at least of half the teams of the league. So I don't know what that means. You guys can take that information and do with it as you please, all right? I don't know how to describe some of these teams. Again, in our simulations, every single team made the playoffs at least once. At least once in our 10 simulation tests. So we are very happy. I am very happy about how close some of these leagues are. Now, again, there are some times where teams will win ridiculous numbers because everything just works for them. By the way, also, just as an example of a projection here, I am predicting, if I was to predict for the Admirals one thing, I'm going to predict that Pete Wheeler and Ty Cobb will combine for 100 plus stolen bases. You heard that right. 100 plus stolen bases combined, of course. Not individually, combined, all right? That's my prediction. My prediction for the Admirals, before we move on to the next team, is that even though their projection grades and expectations are kind of mid to meh, they are going to be an interesting team if Pete Wheeler and Ty Cobb get 50 stolen bases apiece. Yeah, that's what we're projecting. We are projecting that they will both steal 50 stolen bases each, basically. Oh, there's no indication of who the submitted player. I'm sorry, that would have been a good idea, Mr. Audit. I am sorry. You're right. Cash considerations here. I can probably tell you guys who is the submitted players on these teams. Hold on. I should be able to do that. All right. Cash considerations is a created player. That's a custom created player. That's a CCP. Fritz von Hastig is also a CCP as well. That is it, though. Those are the only two people who are custom-made players on this squad. So it is going to be a little bit of a unknown team, unfortunately. There's not going to be a whole lot of people covering the Admirals this year. They may end up just kind of being in the shadows to the left and not that important. So we'll see. Any non-BYB names? So there was, of course, Billie Jean Blackwood. Any non-Billie Jean... Wait. BYB, Backyard Baseball names. So there was Ty Cobb. That would have been the only pro player. I'm sorry, you're right. Let's go over that while we're doing the rosters. So, yes, they have, of course, Ty Cobb. That would be their one... that's their only pro player. So they picked up Ty Cobb, Cash Considerations, and Fritz von Hastig. Those are the three people that are not either a generic character from the BYB, a kid from Backyard Baseball, or one of those two, basically. Or a filler character, which would be Jeremy Reynolds. Jeremy Reynolds is a filler character not submitted by a person. That is one that we had to fill in an empty spot just to make sure we had the right number of players for all the things out there. So, with that, let's move on to the Armadillos. Cobb is also a custom. Cobb is technically a pro player. Ty Cobb is an actual professional baseball player. So he hails from early eras of real life baseball. So he's a good pickup for them. All right, the Armadillos. They started with Roger Lemons, a custom created player. They went to Base Von Balls, another custom created player. EVC and Mr. Audit getting two high picks here at 20 and 31. They went down to Estevan Verl. That's a filler character. Their next 5 pickups. Sunny Day will become their number 1 relief pitcher. They had their starting pitcher. They had their catcher. They pick up their relief pitcher. Jose Miranda goes to the outfield to join Verl. Celia Nelson is a good infielder. I'm expecting Nelson to play shortstop, I believe. Anju Alexander, picked up in the number 7 spot, becomes their second starting pitcher, with Crazen Legumes being their infielder as well. Now, that's going to be, of course, Sunny Day's a custom created player. Jose Miranda is a filler. Celia Nelson is also a filler. Anju Alexander is a custom created player, with Krazen Legumes also being custom as well. And they rounded out their information with Pseudonym coming in the number 9th round. That's a huge pickup for the Armadillos. They somehow managed to land both Pseudonym and Isaiah Patterson, both very good bats, both custom created players. That's a huge pickup, and I didn't even realize that Pseudonym went that far in the draft, but he did. He's very good, and with the stealing being a bigger part of this season, we are also projecting Pseudonym to steal anywhere from about 50 to 60 bases this year. Isaiah Patterson, of course, also going to be a part of this team. He should hit probably about 12 to 15 home runs. Those are both, again, custom created players. Justin Fern, another custom created player, will be joining the infield with Catherine Asher, Colin Klinker, both being part of the rotation, the bullpen. So the bullpen's a little bit of a problem, but you do have Sunny Day, one of the best bullpen arms in the game, joining the Armadillos. This is actually a very decent team at this point. Swipey Bags joins the final draft for the Armadillos, and that is going to result in this as their depth chart. Pseudonym will play left field. We will see about that. Maybe they'll put McBags or somebody else out there. Nelson might be able to play left field, but Pseudonym worked on his defense in the offseason and is now officially good enough to play left field for the Armadillos. Again, Isaiah Patterson at third base. Legumes actually plays at shortstop with Nelson and Fern rounding out the infield. Base on balls, of course, behind the dish. And then, of course, Miranda and Verl joining Pseudonym in the outfield. Verl is going to be a tough one to watch out for. He's drafted, again, third, but his contact is like mid-40s. He's going to have a tough season. If he does well and has all that power come through, he'll be a good, interesting bat. So, as you guys can see, the offense is pretty decent. They've got some run game. They've got some good pitching as well, and that is going to be resulting in the Armadillos being able to pull out these numbers. For their projected runs scored and runs against, they're looking at 235 runs scored, 243 runs against. That's mostly because of, I believe, the two bad relief pitchers and then the lesser quality starter of Anju Alexander. Not that he's bad, it's just he's a far away quality from Roger Lemons, okay? Roger Lemons still going to be a pretty good one, but the rest of the pitching is going to pull it down. Unfortunately, Mr. Odd, I can only say it's a C because of the fact that you have two really good pitchers in Roger Lemons and Sunny Day. I should be expecting your ace games to be wins, but then your second games, Anju Alexander and the other bullpen arms, it's going to be a challenge to win those games. It's going to be a challenge. So, again, 235 runs scored. Expected, that's about 5.3 runs per game, 243 given up, 5.5 runs per game given up. And you guys will understand why the runs allowed is so high in about, one more team, I think? Okay. You guys are going to find out why that's the case. Grades, offense, B. They should score plenty of runs. It should give them a chance to win every single day. The problem's going to be the pitching. Can the pitching keep them in check? Their projected win totals is going to be anywhere from 15 to 24. And again, they made the playoffs 50% of the time in the 5 out of the 10 times we did our simulations. They made playoffs. So, kind of like the Admirals, but a little bit of a friendlier approach. We do expect the Armadillos to be a competitive team. We'll see how it goes. All right. Something to consider is that the pitchers on the Armadillos tend to be ground ball based with a defense to match. Yes, so that has been a big help. We actually have seen a lot of people who drafted teams around pitchers that would put the ball in certain locations, whether that's the outfield, the infield, and then build up their defense around that as well. So that is going to be helpful, and hopefully that gives you a chance to be able to have a better season. And there's always outliers, guys. There's always going to be outliers. Speaking of outliers, let's talk about the bats, shall we? We knew when we drafted the bats that their theme about drafting offense was going to be pretty strong. I didn't think it was going to be this strong. So, we've already talked about what the bats got in the first 3 rounds. They picked up Wade Beers. That was pick 21. I don't know why we keep doubting Wade Beers. Guys, we need to stop doubting Wade Beers. Cinnamon Roll came in pick number 2. That was another good power bat right there. Hank Aaron coming in round 3, another good power bat. They followed that up with Elijah Knock, their number 1 starting pitcher, and then they picked up Boom Boom McBroom. Guys, look at this list. They are going to have, beyond just Boom Boom, they also picked up Mike Piazza and Ahmed Khan. They went all in on the power. They're going to have a middle of the order that is basically Cinnamon Roll, Wade Beers, Boom Boom McBroom, and Hank Aaron with Mike Piazza to boot. This team drafted so much offense that they had 2 starting pitchers and no relievers by the 9th round. So they've got, of course, their catcher, Mike Piazza. He's not a good fielding catcher, but they got the bat. They then went and picked up Hammer Longballo, because why would you not pick up Hammer Longballo? I mean, come on. The dude's name is literally, he's going to put the hammer down, the ball's going to go far. A Longballo. Come on. How are we not going to be drafting that? Yes, the bats are loaded. They're absolutely loaded. Jaden Miller becomes their first relief pitcher in the 10th round. Samantha Winslow becomes their backup infielder, basically. Ronnie Dobbs, Jose Payne, and then Mammy Sciumsby becomes their final pickup. And that, of course, results in this lineup and depth chart. Well, not a lineup, but this depth charts, basically. So they're going to have Ahmed Khan, Hank Aaron, and Hammer Longballo in the outfield. That defense is not that great, but the offense will be fantastic. Wade Beers, Samantha Winslow, Cinnamon Roll, and Boom Boom McBroom make up the infield, with Jose Payne at the DH position and Mike Piazza behind the plate. This is a team that is going to destroy pitching staffs. It's going to destroy pitching staffs. Look at these overall numbers. You've got Mike Piazza at a 68 overall. You've got Boom Boom McBroom 87. I know I say not to worry about the overall numbers, but this is just ridiculous. Look at the power. 102 for Piazza, 119 for Boom Boom, 112 for Cinnamon Roll, 120 for Wade Beers, 103 Hank Aaron. Even Hammer Longballo at 69 isn't that bad. This team is going to get all the run support, which is why... And I guess I should talk about who are all the created players at this point. So, Wade Beers, Cinnamon Roll, Elijah Knock, Boom Boom McBroom, Hammer Longballo, I believe, no, not Jaden Miller. That should be it, actually. I think Mamie Sciumsby might be the final created player. No, I think Mamie is actually also a generic player. So they've got a whole bunch of these really good custom created players at the top of their lists. Now, what does that result in? It results in this. Runs scored, 334. We are expecting the bats to hit in about 7.5 runs a game. I'm just going to let that sit for a second, okay? 7.5 runs per game. Now, they're going to live, they lived up to their name. They're going to give up a lot of runs as well, okay? They're going to give up 6 runs a game. 265 is the expected number of runs given up. Their grades, they are an S graded offense. This is the best of the best. Nobody even got close to the Bats. I think the next person in line behind the Bats is the Ducks, and they had like 290 runs total. Okay? It's going to be interesting to just see how this team performs when we actually do a real simulation, an actual real playthrough. Their pitching is a D. It is just holding on, okay? It's just holding on. However, this is their projected win total. Let's just say offense kills. I did not understand how big of a difference offense does in the BYP. I don't know if I just completely misunderstood it, or we just tried to, if we just tried to like just ignore all of the warning signs and tried to blind ourselves to the idea that no, pitchers are important. You need good pitchers. Pitchers should be in the first round, in like the first half of the first round. Why wouldn't pitchers be really, really good? And the more I look back on this, the more I realize I have been absolutely doubting every single one of the batters, and I owe you all an apology about that. The Bats are projected to win anywhere from 23 to 35 games out of 44. They are expected to be in the playoffs 100%. They are a very, very early expected finals contender. We are expecting the Bats to be the team to beat in the NAL. All right, and that is why a lot of the NAL teams have really bad pitching runs allowed numbers, because they have to play against the Bats every so often. Okay, all right. So, who won again last year? Oh, that would be the Cluckers. That would be Wade Beer and the Cluckers. Yeah. Wade Beers, we may have doubted Wade Beers. He may have gone 21st overall this year, but Wade Beers is going to run back. At this point, he is expected to run it back. That's going to make it so much more painful when the Bats don't make the playoffs. That would be a miracle, Rob Deere. It would actually be a miracle if they don't make playoffs. There is, like, again, in our 10 simulations, they always made playoffs. Always made playoffs. Especially because everyone makes the playoffs. Oh, good grief. It's been a while since I looked at the numbers and articles, but I thought optimal alignment was best hitter hitting second. So we've actually dabbled in that, Joker. We've dabbled between having them bat second and having them bat first. So, for example, when we get around to, I believe it's the Coyotes.
Oh, man, are you a sucker?
Thank you for the sub. By the way, I am so sorry. Nospace, Tim Gross, Brand, and now Tyrion. Thank you, everyone, for the gifted subs. I completely missed those. My apologies. Thank you again, Tim Gross, for the 40 months in a row, or at least the 40 months total at this point. Nospace for the 8 months as well. The gifted sub from Brand3232. I believe that went over to Geo Bon Rockhounds, I believe. And then now Tyrion, 14 months. Thank you, guys. I do appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, yes, we are working towards, trying to figure out, okay, how did we mess up this badly for a team like the Bats that they just were able to draft all the really good power bats, and they just are going to completely destroy the league potentially? We'll see. We'll see if they do. Again, we've done simulations, and I've seen simulations where the Bats do not fare so well. Wade Beers does not have an excellent season, the team struggles as a whole, and it's a bit of a problem. However, I have also seen seasons where both Wade Beers and Boom Boom McBroom hit about 40 home runs each. Not combined. Each. 40. That is not expected. Our average home run hitting is about 28. That's the number we're expecting people to do. I have seen 40. So again, when you play only 44 games, if someone starts off the season really hot, it can change the entire landscape of the BYP. For example, this will be my last side story before we continue moving on. We've got so many teams to talk about, we don't have a whole lot of time. Benjamin Abinduct is expected to be the Triple Crown winner in the team he's been drafted for, which was the Pioneers. Okay, Kaz Cappy is in the same sub-league as Benjamin Abinduct. There have been, I believe, 2 seasons that I have seen where Kaz Cappy beats out Benjamin Abinduct in the ERA and in the wins. Okay? It can happen. It can happen. The Bats can also not make the playoffs. I don't know about that, but maybe they can. Maybe they can actually do that. All right, let's talk about the Bears. That's 2 out of 8 attempts, Kaz Cappy. So you've got a 20-25% chance of being able to maybe beat out Abinduct, okay? He's just way too good. He's just way too good. Anywho, the Bears, They drafted Bully McGuire in round 1, Jim O'Roney in round 2. So they were looking like the Bats, where they had these big name hitters. And then they drafted Maya Day in the 3rd round, which kind of put a little bit of a shelf on their offense. But they bounced back. They picked up Bob Feller in round 4, pick 81. They picked up Ernie Banks, an infielder who they are expecting to play first base in the 112th pickup. That's the 5th round. They picked up Tieran McKenzie, their soon-to-be, I believe, shortstop at this point. Billy Carranza was in their 7th round, and Boomer Gray was in their 8th round. They rounded it out by picking up Bob Saltalamacchiavellini, Hope Shea as their relief pitcher. I don't know who this person is either, unfortunately, as an infielder, I guess. Yvonne Carter will be their final relief pitcher. Hack Daddy was their final batter. And then here's the problem. Sue McFarland, their number 2 pitcher, falls all the way to the end. They were not able to get a good starting pitcher spot in the middle of the draft. And by the time that they were trying to be able to finally get it, there was no reason to overpick for a starting pitcher, and they just slotted Sue McFarland to the last round. So they changed their strategy in the middle of the draft. Right after they got Boomer Gray, basically, they had to do it audible. And that resulted in this. And this is going to be their depth chart. Carranza goes to play left. McGuire goes to play center, of course. And O'Roney goes to play right. They're going to be having Ida No at third base, Tieran McKenzie, a good shortstop at the shortstop position. Bob Saltalamacchiavellini is going to be one of the best second basemen in the league defensively. And Ernie Banks is almost a 100 rated first baseman and has some really good power as well. Hack Daddy is going to be their DH, and Boomer Gray is going to be their catcher. Of course, Bob Feller and Sue McFarland are going to be their starting rotation with Yvonne Carter, Hope Shea, and Maya Day as their bullpen. And Maya Day is a very good relief pitcher as well. So, what does that mean? It means it's going to be an interesting season for the Bears. They still have that really potent offense of Ernie Banks, Bully McGuire, and Jim O'Roney. You can throw in Willie Carranza and maybe Tieran McKenzie as good optimal batters as well. They've got some really good defense in McGuire, McKenzie, and Saltalamacchiavellini, which makes a very interesting team. And it ends up resulting in something that looks kind of like this. They are expected to score 269 runs or so, give or take a run or two, resulting in about a 6.1 runs per game scored situation. Now, again, they are competing against the Bats, so they are not the best offense. They are also going to be giving up about 249 runs a game. That's mostly because of their second starter, and maybe because they have to use that third reliever every so often. But their grades, they're going to be an A offense and a C pitching staff, which results in the Bears being able to do this. They're expected to win anywhere from 19 to 28 wins. However, playoff appearances. They only made the playoffs 4 times in our 10 sim test. Now, that could be an absolute fluke. They have a potential to win upwards of 30-ish ball games, okay? So I don't know if that means that they're overrated or if they're underrated. I don't know what happened in our simulations. But in our simulations, they made the playoffs only 40% of the time. That's less than the Armadillos did. So the Armadillos, who have potentially a weaker ball club, were able to make the playoffs more often than the Bears did. And I'm assuming that is because pitching in the NAL is going to be potentially more potent than good hitting. Most of the teams in the NAL have some pretty good hitting. And if you have one or two of your batters not perform well in the NAL, if you don't have a good year from one of your bats, it can derail your entire season. You know, if Wade Beers has a tough season, that team is barely going to do 500, okay? Because they rely heavily on a couple of those guys to keep that team rolling well. So there's just going to be some situations where if Bully McGuire has a really bad season, the Bears are going to struggle. If he has a really good season, they can win like the best of the best. But good defense can't field balls in the seats. That is very true, Mr. Audit. That is very true. Yes. What was the comment that you were talking about there for that one? Hold on. What was the comment here? Especially because, oh yeah, because every single team is going to make it into the playoffs. That's right. All right, anywho, moving on. It's time for the Cacti. The Cacti, last we had found out they had drafted Keisha Phillips, Mikey Thomas, and Stan Musial. This is a very potent offense already in the works here for the Cacti, and they're part of the SDL. They're not part of the NAL. They ended up rounding this out with Stephanie Morgan, Gail Brewer, Brenda Markart, Bryce Utley, and Evelyn Rumba. That's going to be all of their outfield selected. 2 of their infielders, their catcher, and 1 starter and 1 reliever. They rounded that out by drafting Dominique Hoskins, Exto Forrest, Scooter Pokey, Rupert Cordwangle, Umberto Anders. They have all of the weird names. I don't know why. And Isabel Morelli. Roomba isn't an infielder. Hold on. Did I mistake that one again? I think you're right. I think I have it. No, hold on. Do I have the wrong person on here? Hold on. Where do I have? I have her set up as a closer. Wait. Hold on. Did we do something wrong with that character? Now you're making me doubt myself here. I'm pretty sure that was the design of Evelyn Rumba for a very long time at this point. Although that would make sense that she was supposed to be an infield, vacuum cleaner. Okay, you're just confusing. Good grief. I'm over here like, no, wait, that doesn't make any sense. I'm pretty sure she's supposed to be a closer. This is Evelyn Rumba. She is going to be a very excellent closer. She should be pretty good for the Cacti. So, yeah, Cacti. You're just making me all confused over here, man. Stop it. The Cacti should be pretty good. They're gonna have an okay pitching staff because again, Brennan Markart's not bad, but they are gonna be relying heavily on Markart and Roomba to be able to win a lot of ball games and keep the other teams from scoring. Yes, it doesn't take much to confuse me. I'm sorry, you're right. I'm too trusting of all of you out there, okay? Which is why I don't take it very harshly when we start having corruption problems, because I'm easy to confuse and you guys love to confuse me, okay? But regardless, the combination of Stan Musial, Stephanie Morgan, Gail Brewer, Keisha Phillips, and Mikey Thomas is a great, potent offense. The Cacti are expecting to have their Season 2 projections, grades, and expectations looking like this. They're going to have 233 or so runs scored per game, 238 given up. So unfortunately, the pitching staff is going to have to do a little bit more to be able to make them a playoff contending team. However, their offense is coming in as a B. The offense should come in as a B, and the pitching staff comes in as a C+. They should be good enough to make playoffs, which is why their projected wins is going to be anywhere from 17 wins to 27 wins. We are expecting the Cacti to be a fairly competitive ball club with about a 50% chance of getting into playoffs for Season 2. So, if you're on the Cacti, congratulations. They are going to be a pretty good team. We are expecting them to be pretty solid for the upcoming Season 2. All right. Before we jump into this next team, we're up to the captains. Actually, you know what? Let's just jump right into it. Why not? Captains, they've already selected Captain Kegleg, Cal Ripken Jr., and Chuck Ball. And I just realized those are all C starting names. I hope we did that for the rest of the entire team. They continued on with their draft by selecting D. Dempsey. They missed out on the C's already. Cutie Pie was another selection for them. A couple of very good bats, one infield, one outfield. Christian Mims goes to be their DH, with Sidney Weber and Aaron Crittenden being their first 2 pitchers selected at the end of the 7th and 8th rounds for the captains. Now, this ended up resulting in the rest of their entire draft being Ramon Garcia Parra, Kyle Harris, Danny Boyd, Lena Inge, Francis Bluer, and Trent Sizemore. So, Rob Deere, if you have praise about the draft, you can direct those to me. If you've got blame and responsibility, you can do that to the AI. We will take all the criticism and all the praise. It was all hand-picked, okay? It was all hand-picked. And the reason why we're okay with it all is because at the end of the day, there's only, in my opinion, there's only one team that I think I did a terrible job drafting. And I'll tell you guys about it when we get there, okay? I will be more than honest that there was only, in my opinion, only one team that I thought we did a rough job on, and we didn't quite do that. Feel free to wait to answer since I'm in ads and I won't hear the response. I'm so sorry. Hold on 1 second. No, it's not the Cluckers. Actually, the Cluckers are a middle-of-the-pack team. Yeah. And hello, Hollywood. Hopefully you don't get bumped into a whole bunch of ads. We'll wait till the ads are done so I can respond to Rob Deere. So that way he can get the official response from the commissioner here. We'll go ahead and get you guys a chance to be able to see the results here of the captains as we get into the last 25 seconds of our ad break here. Hopefully try to dismiss those as we move forward so that you guys don't have to do too much about that. So, Ty24 has not been revealed yet, Hollywood. I do believe is he early on in the reveal stages? He might be a little bit later, but we'll find out here pretty soon. All right, we are almost back from the ad break. So, the question that Rob Deere had put down was was the draft done by AI, or is there someone who was responsible and we could blame for how these drafts turned out? So, my response was, if you liked the draft, you can blame me for how well it happened. If you don't like the draft, you can blame AI, okay? But in all honesty, we really liked how the draft went. There was only one organization that I look back on now, and I'm like, oh, I did not do that one very well. I didn't quite give them not even like the consideration, but I didn't give them the right strategy, and they didn't draft the right people at like 1 or 2 spots that really would have turned their team around. And you guys will probably, when you guys see it, you'll probably be like, this is the one. This is the team that didn't quite get the love and care that it needed. But they are still competitive. They're just not as competitive, okay? They're just not as competitive, unfortunately. So, we should be getting to them here pretty soon. I don't think they're too far off. I think they're a little bit always off. They're in the middle of the draft here, basically. Yes, we do need to hustle. So this is the captains. They've got a very good offense. Their pitching staff has a little bit left to be desired. It's mostly going to come down to whether or not Aaron Crittenden can be an absolute baller of an ace of a closer pitcher for them. The captains are expecting to have a season 2 projection of approximately 206 runs scored, 211 runs allowed. That results in a D+ offense and a B+ pitching staff. Is there going to be AI trades? No. We do not allow trades in the league, Hollywood, unless there is roster invalidations. Unless there's a roster invalidation, we do not allow teams to swap players. Well, technically, though, Barry Basher, 30 minutes has been the intro. So we've actually gotten through 5 or 6 teams in about 40 minutes, but that's still not great. So we do need to start chugging along here. So we are expecting the captains to be an interesting team. A lot rides on Captain Kegleg and Cal Ripken Jr. to see how much of the offense they can do. Now, again, you might think a D and a B+, that's not very good. But they're expected to win anywhere from 19 to 25 wins for the upcoming season. They appeared 8 in our 10 simulation tests, which means we're giving them an 80% playoff appearance chance. We do not have injuries either, Hollywood. You get enough players to play every single position. Nobody gets fatigued except for the starting pitchers, just so that way you can't keep throwing your ace pitcher over and over again. But all of the batters have no fatigue, so your shortstop and your catcher are 100% ready to go every single game, and you play everybody, every game, nonstop. except for maybe like a reliever or two. That's how you do it, basically. Yes, Stats Plus is updated, Nick Waddick. Every single team does now officially show the players that are on their team. We're also revealing them here live on the channel. So hopefully, if you haven't seen you haven't been spoiled yet, you can either be spoiled here or you can run over there and see where Nick Jai got drafted to. By the way, I think we're actually just about to reveal where Nick Jai got drafted to. No, wait, he's not on this team. He's on a different team. Right. Or she, I believe. Nick is on a different organization, but we will get to Nick down the road. It's a good one. You're going to like it, Nick Waddick. All right, the Cluckers. They drafted Tim Gross, Fred Rogers, and Dante Robinson as their first 3 selections. They continue on with Vladimir Guerrero, Danny Smith, Crash Davis, Jane Flowers, who was a forced pickup, and Paul Wiesen. The Vlad and the Danny pickup are both very good. They're both going to be very interesting bats. They should produce a little bit of power. It should be good of people like Dante Robinson. We'll see how that goes, but not a bad pickup there. They rounded out by picking up Maya Woodruff, a good defensive infielder. J.C. Swishman, another good defender, but we'll see if they end up playing J.C. Swishman. I think he plays second base, I believe. Eric Gordon is an okay relief pitcher. Lewis Clark gets to be their last outfielder with Vic Souffle as their utility or DH person, I believe. And Esmeralda Hernandez is their inning-eating relief pitcher that shouldn't be coming in that often, unfortunately. We'll see about that. But that results in this. Vic Souffle, Lewis Clark, Vladimir Guerrero on the outfield, and then Maya Woodruff, Dante Robinson, Paul Wiesen, and Danny Smith on the infield. Oh, they put J.C. Swishman at the DH position. My apologies. And Crash Davis is their catcher. Now, the offense is shaky. It's okay, but it's shaky. The Cluckers are going to be relying upon their pitching staff. Yes, there's only 14 players per team. 2 starters, 3 relievers, and 9 batters. 14 players. You have to play everybody. There's also going to be a situation where some bad infield defense. Sorry, you're talking about for the team that they're on. Yeah, we'll have to see about that. We'll talk about the Queens down the road. The Cluckers, otherwise, with their season 2 projections, grades, and expectations, they have a 4.5 and a 4.5. 200 runs scored, 204 runs allowed. That results in a D offense and an A- pitching staff. Now, depending upon which league you're in, that's a very good or a very bad grading. For the Cluckers, it's okay. They can have a bad season. They had a situation where they only won 15 games. That's going to be our minimum. They also had a season where they won 29 ball games. Okay? They did have a situation where they won 29 ball games. They appeared in the playoffs 5 out of the 10 times. We give them a 50% chance of making playoffs. So it's going to depend completely. What other kinds of games are there? Good grief. Why does Tim Gross never have any luck with run support? It'd be nice to get into a better situation for once. You and Kaz Cappy both, Tim Gross. You and Kaz Cappy both. It is a 44 game season, Hollywood. 44 game season. So the Cluckers should be around 500. Should be around 500 at the minimum, or the average, basically. We'll see about that. But that's going to be the Cluckers. They should be an interesting team. They should have a good chance at being able to make playoffs. Coyotes, they had picked up Mike Trout, Angela Del Vecchio, and Bruce Springsteen. They continue their picks by selecting Blueberry, that's going to be their first relief pitcher, Sam Hopper, who will convert to an outfielder, Will Hunt, who will be a utility player, Faye Dawson, who will be playing the infield, and Jessica Wasarsis, who is another utility pickup. So they went more on the offensive boards. They went a little bit more towards the offense for the Coyotes. They didn't really get anything besides Angelo Del Vecchio. I mean, they have Blueberry too, so they do have a really good ace and a decent relief pitcher. The rest of their draft looks like this. Jose Meisenheimer becomes their number 2 relief pitcher. Marky DuBois is going to have to be their number 2 starting pitcher. Jawan Jones is an infielder. Paco Kaufman, also an infielder, with Sailor Pottles being the final infielder for the team, with Frankie Holly being their final relief pitcher. You guys can kind of see how the quality just kind of fell off at the last bit there. They're going to be having Hopper, Trout, and Wasarsis in the outfield, Pottles, Dawson, Kaufman, and Jones on the infield, with Will Hunt at the DH position, and Bruce Springsteen behind the plate. Bruce Springsteen, by the way, should be a very good defending catcher, should be able to improve Angelo Del Vecchio and Blueberry, and we'll have to see how good those two pitchers can do and what they can do for the Coyotes, because again, let's go ahead and talk about Season 2 projections, grades, and expectations. This is the numbers for runs scored and runs allowed. Because they have such a bad number 2 starting pitcher, they are going to be giving up approximately 5.6 runs per game. Again, though, this is in the same league as the Bats. You have to play against the Bats. That's going to impact your runs given up because the Bats are just ridiculously overloaded on offense. So, that is why, for having given up 5.6 runs per game, they still have a C-rated pitching staff. They can still play ball with the best of the best in most pitching situations if it is, of course, Angelo Del Vecchio and Blueberry. Their offense is going to be a B-. So they actually have a fairly potent offense as well, mostly because of Mike Trout and Bruce Springsteen. Their expected and projected wins: 15 wins is the minimum, 22 wins is the maximum. They are only expected to have a 10% chance for playoffs. This is the team that we looked back on and we were like, ooh, we did not do as good of a job as we could have with this ball club right here. It could be that they're just in the wrong sub-league. It could also be that we just did not get them very many good infielders, but the Coyotes are going to have a hard time this year. My apologies to Coyotes fans. It's going to be a rough season. You can still make the playoffs. It's just very difficult to be able to do so. It's going to be a rough season. Buckle up, I guess, is the best way to say that. I am so sorry, guys. That was the only team that was a 10% playoff chance, okay? Coyotes got to make the playoff the old-fashioned way. All right, it's time for the Ducks. The Ducks started off with George Herman, Doran Elmer, and Gorgo de Gamer as their top 3 pickups. They ended up also going out and grabbing Leo Wayne as their ace pitcher. Juan Berrios is going to be their infielder. Jamie Descanacito is going to be their number 1 relief pitcher, with Ezekiel Smith being their number 2 starting pitcher, and RJ Menard is going to be in the outfield. They finished up their draft by grabbing Greg Lake for the infield, Chris Rodriguez for the relief pitching spot. Frank Thomas, dropping all the way down to the 11th round, is going to be their DH, with Jumbo Jimbo being their catcher, Holly Franklin's their relief pitcher, and Kailua Delgado is going to be their last infield pickup. That results in a depth chart that looks like this: Menard, Herman, DeGamer in the outfield, Delgado, Elmer, Lake, and Berrios on the infield, with Thomas at the DH position, and Jumbo Jimbo behind the plate. Best reliever, stuff pitcher, and gets on the worst team. I'm so sorry, Barry Basher. I'm so sorry. I am hopeful. I am hopeful, but it's going to be a prove me wrong season for the Coyotes, unfortunately. And they could do it. They could do it. Don't get me wrong. They could do it, but it's going to be a tough season. It is going to be a tough season. The Ducks, with the offense that they were able to draft and what they were able to do for their Season 2 projections, grades, and expectations, are going to be looking at this: 289 runs per game, potentially, or runs per season, basically. That's a 6.6 runs per game average. They're looking to give up, unfortunately, 280 runs as well. It's 6.4 runs per game. That means their grades round out to being an A+ in the offense and an F in the pitching staff. The Coyotes traded Blueberry for the first overall pick in Season 3. Oh, good grief. They're just mailing in the season now. They're just like, we'll take it. We'll take last place if it just means we get the number 1 pick for next season. For the wins totals, the Ducks are looking to have anywhere from 18 to 27 wins, and they are an 80% playoff appearance chance ball club by our standards. All right. That's what we expect from the Ducks. They are going to be very good, mostly because of that offense. It's going to be a little bit better than the Coyotes, I'm afraid. Coyotes, you got your work cut out for you, unfortunately. I am so sorry. Moving on to the Frogs. Now, this is one that was going to be very interesting. If you guys remember correctly, the Frogs were forced to pick Naomi Murray at the number 7 spot. They were forced to pick Alex Murray at the number 27 spot. They did get away with murder by grabbing Hughes on first at the number 38 pick. And after that, they were able to pick up Chuck Norris at the 90th pickup spot. I don't know how he managed to fall that far. I think it's just because the only thing going for Chuck Norris is his power. That's all he's got. But he fell all the way to the 90th spot in the draft, and the Frogs took him to give themselves some extra power. And Finley Murray was then forced onto the team in the 5th round. And when you have Finley, you got to have Finley Finster. The starting pitcher joins the Frogs as their number 2 starting pitcher. Luann Louie joins the team, and Juan Espinoza joins the team as well. You do have enough for 6 boots there, Hollywood. Regretfully, I will make this announcement before anyone else starts putting in their points. We do not upgrade your characters during the regular season. Once they are drafted, they are set. But you can use those for next season. So build up your points total and put in a whole bunch of them for next season. And that's how a lot of people have to do it. You have to wait till next season. Otherwise, that would defeat the purpose of, someone drafting a player late in the draft and then putting a bunch of, or not someone drafting, but a person being drafted late and then getting a whole bunch of upgrades and suddenly being a number, like a first round pickup. That's how we prevent that from happening. Once we draft, everybody is set in stone. There is no more upgrades. Yeah. So, after they got Juan Espinoza, the Frogs ended up drafting Danny Padilla, Julie Beck, Don Cozart, Adalbert Crittenden, Ichiro Suzuki Jr., and Linda Potter, resulting in a team that looks like this. They're going to have Hughes on first at third, Luann Louie at shortstop, Crittenden over at second base, and Juan Espinoza at first base. Padilla, Murray, and Suzuki Jr. will be in the outfield with Chuck Norris at the DH position, and Julie Beck is going to be at the catcher's position. With the addition of Finley Finster, and Naomi Murray, we're going to have an interesting spot here where the Frogs in the NAL, one of the most power and offense hungry leagues, is going to be looking at something like this. They have a 273 runs scored projected amount and a 223 runs allowed amount. As I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted there by OBS and the servers and whatever else was going on there, the Frogs are expected to have a very good season. They are expected to have an A grade offense and a B grade pitching staff. And DA, if you want to say it's corruption, I can absolutely agree with you. I did not expect the Frogs to have that good of a projection, though. I'm not sure if it was Cox or if it was Twitch or if it was something else. Oh, I am totally connected to the West Coast servers. Do not worry about that, I rock this. There's no way I could stream on the East Coast servers. That would be the worst. So that's where I'm assuming, yes. So I'm assuming what might have happened was Twitch rolled us onto a different active server as they were doing a rolling restart. That's the only thing I can think of, is that basically Twitch kind of just dropped us for a second and then was like, hold on, you'll be back in a second. And we popped back up and now we're good to go. Because we've been fine without, we've had 0 dropped frames until just then. So, no, I'm not giving you guys 1,000 caps for something that's out of my control like that. Come on. If my internet goes down, I'll give you guys caps. No, don't touch the modem. Anywho, The Frogs, with their extremely good projection for the season, are expected to be able to have, if I can get over here at this point, do the Frogs have the highest run differential? No. I do believe that is still going to be the Bats. The Bats are still expected to have the highest run differential. The Frogs are projected to go anywhere from 19 wins to 31 wins. They are expected to make playoffs. They have an 80% chance of making playoffs. Caps for the streamish? Can we get caps for poops and giggles? Oh, fine. I'll give you guys 500. How about 500, okay? There. Will that make you all at least happy? Does that make you happy? Oh, good grief. Yeah, the Bats are definitely going to have the highest run differential. Their offense is just going to carry them so much further than every single other organization can possibly do. So, Frogs are looking to be a very good contender in the upcoming season. It's going to be a good year for the Frogs. It can still be a bad season. They can still have a situation where they don't get the offense they need, and the pitching staff just has to kind of just hold it together, and they could win, 19 to 22 games, which is basically below 500 at that point. But we are expecting the Frogs to be a playoff contending team. They are very, 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 very good. I mean, it makes me less unhappy. At least you guys get your caps that you want. All right, it's time for the Giants. All right, the Giants. It makes you guys all half happy because we only gave you guys 500? Yes, exactly. Absolutely. I told you my week was happy is out of my reach. That's true, Octus. There's only so much you can possibly do, unfortunately. Oops, sorry for that. Alrighty, here are the Giants. We started with, of course, you down with OBP, Mike Schmidt, and Reese Worthington. It was an interesting 3-pick setup here for the Giants. They then followed that up with Christina Beatty, their first starting pitcher, Raquel Colon, an infielder, Todd Xavier, a relief pitcher, Star Moonbeam, an outfielder, a very good, speedy center fielder, and Rebecca Dunbar, a utility player. To answer your question, Brent, no. There's no interdivision play. Well, no, sorry. You're talking about interdivision. So there's only one division. There's no interleague play, if that's what you're asking. So what that looks like is more like this. There's 2 big sub-leagues. You do not play against the other sub-league. Only your own sub-league is who you face off against, which has resulted in some very interesting runs scored and runs against situations where basically the NAL, the left side, is very, very good on offense, and the SDL on the right side is very, very good on pitching. The SDL got like 7 or 8 really good pitchers, and the Neozark League got like all of the good batters. So I don't know what that means and how that happened, but it happened. All right, moving on from the Giants, we have the rest of their picks. Gerald Freeman becomes their outfielder. Janice Lowry becomes another outfielder. John Williams is their number 2 starting pitcher, with Sarah Maxwell, Eric LeBeau, and Isaac Drummond as the remainder of the pickups for them. And if you're looking at this squad and you don't think it's very powerful, you're right. This team is going to be trouble, unfortunately. Their pitching is not terrible. They do have a lot of really good eye and power players with Mike Schmidt and down with OBP and Reese Worthington. Very good eye. But they are going to be relying heavily upon people like, well, basically Reese Worthington and Star Moonbeam to be bigger and better than they are projected to be. It's going to be potentially a rough season for the Giants, which is how they're going to be looking at a situation where their projections, grades, and expectations look like this. 223 or so runs scored is going to be their expected number. 256 given up. They are not looking as favorably. They've got a B- offense and a C- pitching staff. That results in a maximum minimum wins. 14 to 26 is going to be their win range for the Giants. They're kind of like the Coyotes, where they just didn't quite get the right setup and they couldn't quite get the right picks in the later stages of the draft that they really needed to get to solidify their ball club. They really could have used like a pseudonym in the 9th round or something else that would have really given them just a little bit more of an advantage. They didn't quite get that. The draft just didn't give it to them. And the Giants, unfortunately, are going to be a rough ball club this year. they still have a chance. They can still do it if they can get some of their speed going and the homers come through, especially the biggest. I know I mentioned that Reese Worthington and Star Moonbeam are going to be their biggest impactful players, but in all honesty, it's going to come down to how good is down with OBP. There are situations and scenarios that we have seen where he becomes the best hitter in the league. You heard me right. He ends up hitting like 29 home runs, stealing 29 bases, and having like 55 walks. He ends up batting anywhere from like 330 to 410 and has an on-base percentage of almost like 550. Almost sometimes getting upwards into the 600s. He can have a ridiculous season if everything goes right. And that's where the Giants are really reliant upon him to be able to be a really good framing catcher and a great hitting catcher for them. Now, here's the problem. The Giants are not going to hold any runners from stealing bases on them. Because again, down with OBP's arm is a noodle. And it's going to be a problem for the ball club to not let runners just absolutely steal bases all over the Giants. So it'll be dependent upon how that goes and how well the rest of the team handles all of the potential upswinging players, I would say. They do have a shot, but it's going to be hard. All right, it's time for the GOATs. They picked up Babe Ruth and Ivan Rodriguez and Ikaika Knock as their top 3 picks. I know that Elijah Knock and Ikaika Knock were wanting to be on the same ball club, but unfortunately, the GOATs were not able to grab Elijah. The Cluckers had, I think, 5 picks before them, and they grabbed Elijah. So unfortunately, that was not to be. Otherwise, we totally would have tried to have reunited the two Knock brothers at this point, I believe. Regardless, the GOATs ended up picking up Nan Porter, who was the next best starting pitcher after Elijah Knock in the 83rd overall spot. Juan Brown comes in after that. Emily Lubell after that. Stan Olofsson and Isaiah Smith round out the top 8 rounds for the GOATs. And then after that, they picked up Dixie McKenzie, Teeny Theeny, Joe Diggs, Henri Deschennes, Hannah Peavy, and Murray Goldman. That is, again, the top 14, all 14 picks for the GOATs. That results in this. We're talking about Babe Ruth, Ikaika Knock, and Juan Brown in the outfield, Hannah Peavy, Stan Olofsson, Teeny Theeny, and Emily LaBelle being the infield, Joe Diggs and Ivan Rodriguez, the DH and catcher, respectfully. And that, of course, gives the GOATs their full squad. Their expected projections, grades, and expectations are going to be like this. 228 runs scored, potentially for the season. 268 runs against. The pitching staff is just not there. The offense of the B-, it depends heavily upon how good Babe Ruth does. The pitching staff just needs to hold on. They just need to be able to keep pace with other good offensive teams. Again, this is the NAL. There are like 5 or 6 really good offensive teams in the NAL. It's just going to be really hard. It's going to be a lot of offensive juggernaut ball games, basically, is what's going to end up happening. That results in the GOATs being anywhere from 16 to 25 wins for the upcoming season. That would put them on the cusp of being a playoff contending team, hence why they have a 20% playoff chance, in our opinion. It's going to be a tough season for the GOATs. We don't know exactly how good Babe Ruth is going to be, and Ivan Rodriguez is only going to be able to do so much for this pitching staff as their main catcher. It's really going to come down to how well does the combination of Babe Ruth and Ikaika Knock bring in the offense. How clutch are they? Can they get people on in front of them, and can they just drive people in? That's going to be their biggest asset, is being able to score runs and score them in bunches. How many knocks for Ikaika? Exactly. How many knocks can Ikaika get? The Kings, with their first 3 selections, they went pitching. They went Johnny Silverhand, Roy Halladay, and then they audibled for Vicky Kawaguchi. Their next 5 pickups were Felix Martinez, Ricardo Koba, Gretchen Hasselhoff, Ernie Steele, and Pete Rose coming in the 8th round. After that, they were able to pick up Hideki Katsui, Wally Evans, Chad Koppel, Billy McBaron's their catcher, with Colby Joe and Whitney Singh rounding out the squad. That results in this as their team. Katsui, Martinez, and Rose in the outfield. Steele, Kawaguchi, Evans, and Koba on the infield with Colby Joe as the DH, and Billy McBaron as the catcher. Now, the bigger thing about this team is their pitching staff. Is the pitching staff going to be enough for this ball club? Anywho, the Kings, with their expected results for Season 2, are going to look like this. They are going to be having 191 runs scored, 185 runs allowed. That results in 4.3 and 4.2 for their runs scored and runs allowed runs per game. Their grades are a D- in the offense and an A+ in the pitching staff. They are one of the best pitching ball clubs in BYP for Season 2. It's going to be interesting just how well the Kings do because, unfortunately, if my memory is correct, it's all over the place. They're anywhere from 18 wins to 28 wins. It should be a good season for the Kings. Should be. But it could still fall apart. We'll have to see how they do. We have given the Kings a 70% playoff chance for the upcoming Season 2 at this point. So, the Kings are not bad. It's going to depend upon their pitching staff. Again, they are in the SDL, which is, again, the same division, same sub-league as Benjamin Abinduct and Kaz Cappy. So it's going to be a tough one for runs allowed, but they are up to the challenge. All right, before we get into the Mythics, we're about halfway. Otherwise, the streaming is just a whole bunch of dry air time and then me talking. So, the Mythics, they had drafted Jody Weed, Annie Frazier, and Susan Goris their first 3 rounds. They were looking pretty good. Their offense is going to be interesting. They followed that up by drafting Sal Cordoba, Dusty Mound, Giancarlo Stanton, Bubba Ray Jones, and Beamer Bird. Following that pickup, they were able to get Brent Natwick, their second starting pitcher. Chris Moses and Swole Joel rounded out their infield. And then Mason Griffiths was their final outfield pick, with their last 2 picks being relief pitchers Mariana Ralph and Derek McCattery. So, the Mythics, they're going to have a good offense. They're going to have some problems in the bullpen, though. The pitching is a little weak, I have to agree. The pitching is going to be problematic. This is their ball club. Cordoba, Frazier, Stanton in the outfield, Joel, Gore, Bird, and Moses on the infield, with Griffiths in the DH position. Jody Weed, one of the best catchers in the game behind the plate. Now, Bubba Ray Jones is actually not a relief pitcher to sleep on. Bubba Ray is going to have an interesting season. He could be very, very good. Yes, that's true. The best catcher in the league. That's very true. She would have been the number 1 catcher pick. And probably one of the top 10 pickups. If we could have gotten around to doing that correctly, but the force picks made it so that way it was a bit tougher. Anywho, the Mythics, for their Season 2 projections, grades, and expectations, are going to have this. 250 or so runs per season, so that's about 5.7 runs per game. Their pitching is going to be a problem, though. They're going to give about 6 runs a game. That's 266 expected runs allowed for the season. That results in an A- offense and a D-rated pitching staff. However, they are expected to finish the season anywhere from 17 to 29 wins. So as you guys can see, offense is very good. Having a good offense is going to be a blessing in disguise for Season 2. We give the Mythics a 70% playoff chance. 70%. So, the Mythics should be a contender. The offense should be able to pull through. Hopefully, Titus 24 wasn't picked for the Mythics. He was not, Hollywood. I'm so sorry. I don't know. You might have wanted to have been picked by the Mythics. They're a pretty good squad. The Ninjas. Started off similar situation. Willie Mays, Hitty Ball, Craig Biggio, 3 offensive caliber players. They then went and they grabbed Hurricane, one of the better catchers in the 4th round early. Strawberry was their 5th round. Cornflake especially was their first starting pitcher. They rounded out their rotation by Matessa Sturges. D. Fernandez got drafted at that point in the 8th round for the infield. And then right after that, Kyle Williams was their, I believe, first relief pitcher. Marina Peck was an outfielder. Fred Benson, utility. Julie Dunkel, Gary Allen, and Wing Quan round out the Ninjas roster. This is what they're going to be looking at for their Season 2. They're looking at Peck, Mays, and Ball in the outfield. Fernandez, Berry, Biggio, and Allen on the infield with Fred Benson at the DH position. And Hurricane is going to be behind the dish. For their expected results for Season 2, we are going to be having some additional projections and grades and expectations here. They're looking at about 232 runs scored, 236 runs allowed, almost a dead even season for the Ninjas. They're looking at a B-rated offense and a C+ rated pitching staff. Now, what does that mean for projected wins? They're looking at anywhere from 16 to 27 wins for Season 2. That's a wide range of results. That's an 11-win range. It's going to be interesting to see exactly what this team can do. We give them a 40% chance to make playoffs. 40% chance. The Nobles are next. It's time to get all your boos out in the chat. The Nobles, of course, picked up Dean Danger. That was a forced pick there. They picked up Amanda Hellerman, and then they picked up Shadow Bands. They went a different route than most ball clubs. They went pitching-oriented. However, they immediately then turned around, grabbed Tony Gwynn, Dante Havisham, Fluffy Pillow Pants, Ricky Urioste, and then finally got their second rotation arm in Billy Douglas. After that, they picked up Harmon Killebrew, Woodrow, Jibbo DeHibbo as their, I believe, second relief pitcher. Go haters. That's okay. You can love the Nobles all you want, okay? Yes, the lore behind it is that we compared them to the Yankees when they first were made. Some value there in the 10th round, says DA, and Jahibba, the Backyard Sports Center, would agree in the 11th round. Both of you going to the Nobles in the 10th and 11th rounds. Ricky Johnson, Tommy Shanks, and Zenon Estrada round out the Nobles, which results in this being their team. Ricky Johnson, Woodrow, and Tony Gwynn will be in the outfield. Pillow Pants, Danger, Shanks, and Killebrew. Yes, Woodrow. What's his last name? Where's Woodrow's last name? Do you want to know his nickname or his actual last name? Because his actual last name is Woodrow. But regardless, Urioste is the DH, and Havisham, a very good framing catcher, is going to be behind the plate. Now, the Nobles, because they have such an interesting pick of selections here, it was going to be a little bit weird just to see exactly how this goes. Jibbo should play a lot Backyard Sports Center. That should be a good pickup. Do not worry about that. He will probably get involved in at least half of the ball games. Should probably pitch about 30 innings in 44 ball games. It should be pretty good. The Nobles are expected to get 226 runs scored and give up 203. They're looking at a B- offense and an A- pitching staff. How do they do it? I do not know. The Nobles are looking to, once again, be the most hated team that is successful in the league. They are looking at a winning range of 18 to 28 wins. We give them a 90% chance to make playoffs. I am going to let the haters just have a moment to look at this slide. This was not planned. This was not corrupted. The Nobles, with a forced pick in the first round at the number 3 overall spot, are able to basically... They are the second best team in the BYP projected for Season 2. They are the second best team by our projection standards. It is going to be an interesting season. It's going to be an interesting season, let's just say. All right, it's time for the Owls. The Owls, who had Kaz Cappy last year, start off the draft this year with Vinny the Gooch, Jocinda Smith, and Kenny Kawaguchi. With the remainder of their picks, they start off by getting Eric Kelly. The first base, third base pickup, Crescent Roll, is going to be also joining the Owls with Jorge Garcia, Sonia Hagen, and Omar Stefano. The last pickups for the Owls, of course, were going to be Grace Tipton. Jackie Wells is their catcher. Heather Quinn is going to be an infielder along with Germ Thang. George Coleman and Judy Abwenza are going to be their final 2 relievers, and it's going to be a tough time for the Owls because those relievers at the end of your draft and Omar Stefano in the middle, your bullpen is going to be a problem. It's going to be a little bit tough to do that. Love to see that my character has his own emote. Exactly, Tim Gross. Tim Gross and Vinny the Gooch with the custom emote out in center field. Well, actually, sorry, hold on. That's actually from Backyard Sports Center, isn't that? No, wait, that's mine. Wait, I put up that emote? I guess I did. Regardless, Vinny the Gooch has also got his player profile picture all fixed and ready to go as well. Brent, the 5th round pick, 109 on if you walked away again. Exactly. Yeah, if Brent walked away again, this is the team he joined. It is the Owls here. Now, this is a potent offense. Kelly, Smith, not bad there. I have gotten Crescent picture done, Brent. It just didn't get into the screenshot here. All right, here. Actually, hold on. I can prove it. There you go. Crescent Roll on the Owls. It's going to be an interesting season for the Croissant. I'm not convinced Jorge Garcia is actually into the idea of playing baseball. He can be convinced to play baseball, let's just say. He can be convinced. The Owls, with their unique offense, are going to be looking to try to be a contender for Season 2. And their expected Season 2 projections, grades, and expectations result in this. 243 runs scored, 265 runs allowed. That's a 5.5 and 6.0 runs per game situation. The grades, we're looking at about a B+ for the offense and a D for the pitching staff. It's going to be an interesting season for the Owls. We are expecting them to be anywhere from 17 to 27 wins. We are expecting them to be a 50-50 coin toss for playoff potential for Season 2. It just depends on how good the offense is. Vinny the Gooch can actually be one of the biggest offensive contributors in the BYP if he gets the right season. I have seen seasons where Vinny the Gooch is one of the best batters in the league. All right? So, if Vinny the Gooch is good, if Crescent Roll has a good season, if Eric Kelly has a good season, if Jorge Garcia has a good season, this team can rake. This team can absolutely drive in a whole lot of runs. It's just going to depend upon the pitching staff. The pitching staff just needs to be solid. So, the Owls should have a chance. I have seen simulations, though, where the Owls were not very good, okay? So, it just depends on how well the offense does and what the team can look at getting over the course of the season. All right, it's time for the Pioneers. We all know who they got in the first round. That was Benjamin Abinduct, one of the best pitcher in the league. It is just still recognized as such, basically. Ricky Henderson went in their second round, and Ashley Weber was their third round. It was not a great setup, unfortunately. They then drafted Marcellus Marks for the infield. Bubbles Sugar Sox will be their number 2 starting pitcher, With Jerry Santillan and Claudia Villarta joining the offense with Knuckle Tech being their catcher, they then went out and drafted Jason Johnson, Watson Second, Nick Rodriguez, Carl Kronsky, Joey Cumberbatch, and Esther French. That was their top 14. That results in a team that looks like this. Cumberbatch, Henderson, and Santillan are going to be the outfield with Second, Weber, Marks, and Villarta on the infield. Kransky as the DH, and of course, Knuckletech is their catcher. Now, with Benjamin Abbott as their pitcher, their Season 2 projections, grades, and expectations are going to be interesting, let's just say. They are expected to have 172 runs scored for them and around 167 runs against. That's a 3.9 runs per game scored and a 3.8 runs per game given up. That gives them the offensive grade of an F, but the pitching grade of an S. The Pioneers are going to be such an interesting team for Season 2. I do not know what we're expecting from them, in all honesty. There are, in the examples and simulations we have done, Dustin, you're 100% correct. Every single game was like 5 runs or less combined, especially when Abinduct pitches. The wild swings and runs are amazing. Exactly. They're going to go from like very small ball games to potentially double-digit type ball games. It's going to be weird how this team performs. Their expected win total, however, is the most unwild I've ever seen. The Pioneers cannot perform poorly, and they cannot perform amazingly. They are expected to win anywhere from 20 to 24 wins in the regular season. That's in 10 sims, 10 different example sims. They could never get more or less than 20 to 24. They also made the playoffs 5 times. They were in the playoffs 50% of the time. So the Pioneers, while they are not going to be subject to wild swings, they are expected to be a playoff contender regardless of how well the team actually performs. How many games will Abinduct win? All 20? We are projecting that Abinduct will win anywhere from 16 to 18 of his 22 starts. Yes, you heard me right. 16 to 18 of his 22 starts, we expect Abinduct to win. He's projected to go 8 innings and give up 1 run every single game. And yes, if the Pioneers get to playoffs, you just let Abinduct go off. Now, there will be a problem with that, though. You won't be able to just throw Abinduct. You will have to throw your number 2 starting pitcher. So they will have to win a game by just sheer luck, basically. That second game in the playoffs, they will have to win by just sheer luck. But if they can get through that, they are an excellent contending team. Excellent contending team. All right, it's time for the Queens. It is time for the Queens. We know who they got in the first round. That was Kaz Cappy, of course. I expect him to win 0 against me, says Kaz Cappy. Oh, that's great. Honus Wagner was their second pick. Bert Handsome was their third. Hey, D-Block, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel, man. Welcome, welcome, welcome. The Queens, after their third-round selection, of course, were forced to pick up Lizbeth Cappy. That's going to be their first relief pitcher. They then went out and got Miami Unlucky, an amazing infielder defensive player. They got May Mortabito, an amazing defensive center fielder, and they picked up Nick Jai to be their second starting pitcher, and then rounded out the top 8 by selecting Grief on Hastig. Now, here's the problem. The only offense this team has so far is basically Handsome and Wagner. There's going to be some issues with the bats, if my memory is correct, because the last couple of picks were Chris Jardine behind the plate. That's actually a really good pickup about there. Felix Grant for the infield, Slam Bino for utility, Evan Screwball for infield, Mickey O'Connor for relief pitcher, and Alan Holzman, also a reliever. The relievers are going to be a problem besides besides Cappy, okay? And here's the full details. Handsome, Morabito, and Wagner are the outfielders. Grant, Unlucky, Hastig, and Screwball are going to be the infielders. Bino is their DH, and Jardine is going to be your catcher behind home plate. Now, I do want to take just a quick second to talk about the two people that I said were really good on the defense. This is Miami Unlucky, by the way, folks. This is the Queens pick in the number 5 round. This is actually going to be a very interesting pick. Good defensive shortstop. Very good defensive shortstop. Then you have Morabito. May Morabito is an amazingly good ranged outfielder. The defense, unfortunately, going to be all about that range. Could have some air and arm problems. But these two should give Kaz Cappy a really good defense up the middle. You should be able to have some pretty good defense from those two alone. It's just going to be how much offense can you get, because the offense could be a little stagnant. Hence why the Queens in their Season 2 projections, grades, and expectations are going to be looking at 204 runs scored for the season and 197 runs allowed. They have an offense that's ranked as D+, and a pitching staff that's ranked as an A. Yes, Kaz just needs to make a power hitter for next year, and he'll be all set. Yep. That is true, though. Second base has some really bad defense. That's true. Yeah. They did not get a good second baseman, unfortunately. So, you're going to be relying heavily on Ozzy, which I believe is Attica's character. So that should be a good one right there. Regardless, the Queens are expecting to be anywhere from 17 to 24 wins for Season 2. A little bit lower than I was hoping for from the Queens. I was hoping for more, especially when you have someone like a Kaz Cappy and Elizabeth Cappy, and even with people like Honus Wagner and Bert Handsome. This team has some pop. They've got some abilities. But it is going to have to all come together at once. It's going to be a little bit more of a pain for the Queens this year. They are given a 30% chance at making playoffs. That is not terrible, but it's not what you wanted to see when you got Kaz Cappy in your first round selection. They are going to be hoping that Kaz Cappy is everything that they expect Kaz Cappy to be. If they can get what they want from Kaz Cappy, the season probably goes into the 50 to 60% playoff chances. And then if they just get a little bit more from Bert Handsome, the defense pulls through, this is a team that will compete, and they will be a very good team. We have seen some simulations outside of our 10 test sims where the Queens were dominant. I think there was one, it was the one time that Kaz Cappy outplayed Benjamin Abenduct. The Queens ended up winning 29 games that season. So, not trying to hype up Kaz Cappy and give you false hope here, but it is possible. It is very possible that the Queens and Kaz Cappy have a good run this year. It's also possible they have a terrible run, but I've seen it both ways. Moving on, from the Queens, we have the Reapers. We're actually getting close to the end here, folks. We've got 20 minutes left. The Reapers, with their first 3 selections, this was, of course, Pablo Sanchez's club. They picked up George Brett and Amir Khan. That's going to be their first 3 pickups. After they got Amir Khan, they went out and they picked up Jib Von Drake and Xavier Zikafuz. We just need Lisbeth to be the only reliever to actually pitch. That actually might be the answer, Kaz Cappy. The answer might just be let Lisbeth try to go every single game and go multiple innings. Amir Andrews was picked after the 2 starting pitchers for the Reapers. Cheryl Reynolds and Angelique Harding were their first 8 pickups. And then after that, they picked up Ty 24. So Hollywood, you got picked up by the team that got Pablo Sanchez. Now, there's a problem with that, unfortunately. Because they picked first overall, their draft selection was a little bit harsher. because they didn't get a pick until 49 and 50, 96, 97. They ended up picking a lot of stuff based off of whether or not they could get batches of players and fill roles quickly. Hence why they picked up both you and Angelique Harding back to back. Now, that does not mean the team is bad. This is going to be their situation. They're going to have Amir Andrews in left field, John Doe in center, Rocco Labastra over in right, Brett Sanchez, Khan, and Reynolds on the infield with Debbie Nagasawa and Ronald Lee as the catcher, and of course the DH, Debbie Nagasawa. Now, let's talk about their projections, and then we'll take our next ad break here. The Reapers, for their Season 2 projections, grade and expectations, they're looking at about 216 runs scored and 205 runs allowed. That is a graded offense of C- and a pitching staff of A-, which is not bad. The problem is you're in the same sub-league as Benjamin Abenduct and Kaz Cappy and Angela Del Vecchio and a bunch of other good pitchers. That unfortunately means that your expected win total is going to be anywhere from 14 to 27. This is the widest ranged team that we have projections for. The Reapers are either really, really good or really, really bad. They made playoffs 7 times, though, so more often than not, they were pretty good. But they showed flashes of really good greatness and a couple flashes of really, really bad seasons. The Reapers are going to be relying heavily on Pablo Sanchez. Pablo Sanchez needs to be the best batter in the game. That is how the Reapers are going to win. They need Pablo Sanchez to be the secret weapon once again. Yes, they need him to be MVP, not only for his team, for this team, but really for the entire league. That's what needs to happen. So, Reapers are going to be fun, but it's going to be a scary ride. All right, we're up to the Rockets. We're almost done here, guys. We almost got it all the way through. We got 10 minutes or so left. Let's finish strong. All right. Last we had left off, the Rockets, with their first 3 selections, had grabbed Ken Griffey Jr., Barbara Jones, and Tony Del Vecchio. Interesting pickup for Tony Del Vecchio. We'll have to see how that plays out. He is projected to do pretty well, but mostly just because of his power and a little bit of his defense. Not a whole lot else besides that. For their next 5 pickups, the Rockets would go out and select Choo Choo Magoo, Chico Pappas, Pamela Kirkos, Reddit, and Jovan Shlavankinen? I don't remember the last name. I'm just going to call him Jovan at this point. Outside of that, the Rockets were able to draft Nolan Davis, Razor Axelrock, Alejandro Erlano, Loki Torbjorksen, Harry Fast, and Kimmy Ekman. That results in the team looking like this. Erlano, Griffey Jr., and Del Vecchio in the outfield. Kirkos, Jones, Fast, and Pappas on the infield. With, of course, Axelrock in the DH position and Loki at the catcher's position. Now, unfortunately, the offense is not blow-away good, and the pitching staff is not that great, which unfortunately results in the Rockets having a Season 2 projection grade and expectation of this. They're going to be at a 205 runs scored for the season, a 228 runs scored, runs allowed. It's going to be interesting to see what they can do. Let me switch the music here for just a quick second. It's going to be interesting to see how well they perform. We give their offense a D+. It could get up into the C range depending upon how good Ken Griffey Jr. does. The pitching is going to be a B. It just depends on how exactly some people step up. The Rockets are looking at an interesting season. They have another of these like really wide range situations where their minimum wins could be 11 and their maximum wins could be 27. They could have a really good season where they're 5 games over 500, or they could have a really bad season where they barely win more than double digits. So unfortunately, the Rockets are in a tough spot where they have to have some really good performances from a couple key players. Otherwise, their season could be in for a rough ride. Yeah, it's gonna be tough. Regardless, we do give them a 40% chance at making playoff because when they do perform really well, and when Ken Griffey Jr. in particular is on his game, this team scores a lot of runs. That run scored number goes way, way up. All right, it is time for the Trains. They did not get Choo Choo Magoo this season, unfortunately. They did pick up, however, Roman Aday, Pierzynski, Rabzinski, and Roland McPoley as their first 3 picks. Qui-Gon Jake had that back on Saturday. The next 5 pickups were Maria Luna, Andrew Page, S.C. Ruffy, also known as Scruffy, Earl Abbott, and Lindsey Felgate. Not a bad top 5 or top 8 at this point. They've got some good offense. They have some interesting pitching spots in here. And with the last pickups, they got Greasy Utley, Jerry Mahoney, Olga Tolofsson, Adam Van Doren, Vladimir Womack, and their final pick was a relief pitcher in Samuel Middleton. That results in a team that looks like this: Andrew Page, Van Doren, Luna in the outfield, Felgate, Aday, Tolofsson, Womack for the infield, Utley at the DH position, and Roland McPoley behind the plate. It's not bad. This team is actually very balanced. The problem is that they're also kind of balanced. The Trains, for their Season 2 projections, grades, and expectations, are at 219 for runs scored and 215 for runs allowed. It's just gonna be an interesting season for the Trains because they have a not bad offense and a not bad pitching staff, but they don't have a great offense or a great pitching staff. Their pitching is definitely a little bit better. Pierzynski should be a bona fide ace this year. It should be a breakout season for Pierzynski, and they're relying upon him to be that ace. But if we look at their information, what they were able to do, this is what they're looking at. Their minimum amount of wins is going to be 15. Their maximum is 26. They are expected to be a 50% playoff-bound team. So while I want to say that they're really good, they're not great, but they're not bad. They've got a good shot. And it's really going to come down to how well does the combination of Pierzynski, and Roman Aday drive this team forwards. That's going to be the real one, is how good are those first 2 picks able to carry the team, and does the offense pull through for them? I think that's going to be their bigger question, is can they keep that run scored number above their runs allowed? Can they do that? If they can, they've got a good shot. So, Trains, it's going to be interesting. You've got a little bit of a minimum wins low end that I don't like to see at 15, but I do appreciate having a team that can at least be 4 games over 500. That would be a playoff contending team. So, Trains, not bad, not great, but not bad. That will play. All right, final 2 organizations, and then we'll give you guys a wrap-up graph about all of the teams so you guys can see all of them in one page. The Warlocks, with their first 3 selections, picked up Sandy Koufax, Timmy Unger, and Bradford Smart. After that, they picked up Nell Hebert, Lefty Cheese, Dazen Tammy Lee, and Tom Delgado went in the number 8th round for the Warlocks. That's pick 189. The guy who's been threatening a whole bunch of people with beanballs is going to the Warlocks. Seems appropriate. Outside of that, they picked up Randy Houston for their catcher's position, Elijah Nale as an infielder, Felipe Torres, Sewan Jones, Davey Marion, and Belladonna Brown actually as a second backup catcher. They have resorted to putting Belladonna Brown at the DH position and Brandy Houston at the catcher's position because the defense is better for Brandy Houston. So this is what they're looking at. Guile, Smart, Jones in the outfield, Nale, Unger, Lee, Hebert on the infield, Belladonna Brown in the DH position, and Houston behind the plate. Now, as you guys can see, this is a pitching team. They've focused a lot on their 2 starters and their 1 relief pitcher. They do have some good bats in Timmy Unger and Bradford Smart, but it's going to be an interesting season for the Warlocks. Their projected Season 2 grades and expectations look like this. 194 runs scored, that's an average of 4.4 runs per game, and 198 runs allowed, that's 4.5 runs per game. Offensively, they're graded as a D. It's not that great. It's not going to be amazing. Their pitching, though, is rated as an A. The Warlocks, with their expected wins and losses, or at least their wins, are going to be anywhere from 16 to 26 wins is what we're expecting from them. It could be anywhere between that number, basically. And their playoff appearances, 50%. So another team that could be a coin toss if everything works out. And if Sandy Koufax has a good season, this team can play with the best of the best. If Sandy Koufax is not doing well, this team is going to be in for a rough season. It's going to be a rough season for them. Only time will tell about the Warlocks. And last but not least, it's time for the Whistlers. The Whistlers in their top 3 picks went with Randy Johnson, Larry Walker, and Robin Yount. They went for the mustaches, and they continued that. They got Evan Longoria, Ted Williams, Lisa Crockett, Georgia Kings, and Sally Dobbs. It's a pro team. Oh, yeah. 5 pro players for the first 5 picks. 9 and on, they picked up Butts Carlton, Johnny Omar, Randy Fast Track, Jose O'Reilly, Lorelai Ike, and Dominique Lowe as their final selection of the draft. That results in a team that looks like this. They have... Oh, that's not the right picture. Hold on. All right. That's the actual... No. No. Go back. What are you doing? There. That's what we're supposed to be looking at there. Ted Williams, Lisa Crockett, Larry Walker in the outfield, Evan Longoria, Robin Yount, Randy Fast Track on the infield with Butts Carlton over at first base. Ike is going to be the DH, and Jose O'Reilly is going to be the catcher. It's going to be an interesting team. They have really good starting pitchers in Georgia Kings and Randy Johnson, but the offense, I think, is going to be the biggest part of the Whistlers. That's going to be the spot that actually makes or breaks this team. Can people like Robin Yount and Evan Longoria step up to the challenge? You expect big things from Ted Williams and Larry Walker. I already know they're going to do well. It's going to be whether or not those two can do a good job. That's going to be your bigger thing. So, the Whistlers in Season 2 are projected, expected, and graded as such. They're going to be looking at 228 runs scored, 232 runs allowed. That's 5.2 and 5.3 runs per game, respectively. They have a B- bat and a B- pitching. I must ask you why the Whistlers picked Randy Johnson first? Well, I mean, he has the mustache. They picked mustache people. They picked Robin Yount. Larry Walker had a little bit of a mustache at one point, so yes, he counts too. I don't remember if Ted Williams ever had a mustache in his life, but, hey, it happens. They picked mustache people. Why not? But the Whistlers, with a B-, yes, mustaches give you extra whistling points, exactly. With that expectation, they're projected to go anywhere from 16 to 26 wins for Season 2. They are expected to be another of these coin flip 50% playoff bound teams. It could be a good season for the Whistlers. Randy Johnson could pull through, or it could be a terrible season. The offense does nothing, and Randy Johnson wastes an entire season trying his best to carry this team to the playoffs. Kind of like the Queens, unfortunately. We have so much to wait for and so much to watch out for. I hope you all will be back here on Saturday. We're going to be having Qui-Gon Jake back in the studios doing opening day. It will be opening day on Saturday. We might watch a game. We might do some simulations. I'll see what our options are. But regardless, guys, ladies and gentlemen, I hope to see you all back here on Saturday as the BYP will be kicking off Season 2, opening day. You won't want to miss it. Again, Saturday is going to be opening day. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope you had a whole bunch of fun watching this very dry but very informative projections and draft reveal for Season 2. I will see you all hopefully on Friday. We'll try to do one more stream. I will see you all on Friday, and then you all should be seeing Qui-Gon Jinn on Saturday. I might join him for that stream. We'll see. But regardless, I will see you all very, very soon. Bye-bye, everybody.